probably know Amanda Bouldin from her TikTok name, After Hours with Amanda. Amanda, a mom of 3 from California, went viral on TikTok this January and has since garnered more than 50 million likes on TikTok for sharing her advice and stories on a topic rarely present on social media: kindness. Amanda and I talked about how we can practice empathy in the social media age and how to find the good in 2020. This is our conversation.
I thought to myself, okay, if this resonated that quickly with such a wide audience, like demographically, age range, everything, people have to be feeling this too. Like this, I'm not alone in this. And then there was this really encouraging feeling of realizing that other people felt this way. And that if other people felt this way, that if I was sharing it, maybe it could alleviate what other people were feeling. And if they felt as lost as I did, maybe me sharing what I was learning would be beneficial to them ahead of when I was learning it. So that's always my point. I really try hard. I know because I'm more mindful in my parenting, I think sometimes my videos can be seen as like, oh, she's doing this or this and this is correct. And it's like, no, 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 no. Like I want more share what I'm learning and how I'm trying to learn from that versus, oh, well, this is what you should be doing. Because parenting
Mhm.
is so unique to each parent and child.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting how many people there are kind of in my age range where we're not really thinking about having kids yet, but there's also a lot of kids who watch you. Were you surprised by that?
Um, I would say, honestly, at first I was surprised, but my heart was a little bit sad because I was like, can I just hug everybody? Because the reason I think that they were watching me was because it was validating. And it in like a very deep mom way made me sad because I wanted them to feel validated. I talked about it even today on Instagram. London had an incident at school where she had a headache. She had a headache and she didn't want to go back to class. And so the school was like, you need to pick her up. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Um, Come to find out, there was a lot of stuff that happened the first day back from Thanksgiving break. Fire alarm, her teacher wasn't at school. There's just so much change. And she just needed a consistent thing, which was me in the moment. And I think that for me, it surprised me that so many kids watched me and it made me want to share even more so that they can come to a place that feels safe. Like one of my favorite comments is when people say that my content makes them feel safe because I know in a time when so many people are quarantined and maybe not in their favorite spot, I want them to have a place to retreat to.
You talked a little bit about how you went to school for communication, but how did you develop your particular communication style over the years and how you relate to other people?
Honestly, I would say trauma. Like, that's the most honest answer I can give. Growing up, there were different things that I navigated and experienced, and when I lost my mom 9 years ago, I looked at my husband and I was like, "It all doesn't matter," and he was like, "What are you whoa, like, calm down." I'm like, "No, no, no. At the end of the day, everybody dies, and, like, the only thing you have is how you made people feel. That's what they're left with, is how you made them feel. It doesn't matter what materialistic thing you can leave a human being, they remember how you made them feel." And so it became very important to me. We didn't have kids at the time, but it became very important to me to try and honestly, mindfully stop myself in situations where I could react or be irritated and just say, what is the cost value of all this? Am I stressing myself out? Is what I'm going to do benefiting someone else? Or does this in the wide scope of things actually matter? Can I do something better in this situation? And then when the kids came along, it was kind of the same thing. I had this realization like, oh, I don't have to do this. There's no hard and fast rule that says this. I'm only defaulting to what I know. So I'm more than able to switch that up.
I love that idea of asking yourself, what's the cost value of this? I haven't heard that before, but that's a really good thing to kind of keep in your back pocket.
Yeah, like what energy I always tell my husband, you only have, and I tell him about this like with our minds, the things we consume, the things we take on, you only have so much energy. You don't get time back. It's the one commodity you can't buy more of. So what am I going to spend my time doing? That time translates into my energy, what I put into my mind, what I put into the world. So how am I going to do that in a way that's most effective to me and gives me the most versus just wasting my energy, which wastes time on things that don't actually add up to benefiting anybody, including myself.
Absolutely. And if you're not filling your own cup, then it's like you can't be there for the people who do care about you and do need you.
Exactly. Yeah.
What does practicing empathy look like to you just on a daily basis?
It's a daily, I think it's like a daily practice with anything is stopping myself to ask myself what is causing this reaction in the other person. So if I go somewhere and someone is, say, in an interaction at Target, which happens, more often than not, someone seems very short with me, or someone seems irritated, or I accidentally bump someone's cart and they get angry, I immediately tell myself, "Oh my gosh, they must be having a hard time." I will not, and I don't think it's people go, "Oh, that's excusing bad behavior." I don't think it is. If someone was being really unkind to my child or myself, I would say, "I really apologize. I'm sorry. I don't know if it warrants being, that verbal or whatever they're doing." But I think it's asking yourself, what could be putting that person in that situation that allows them to feel that way. I said this on my podcast last week. I was talking about people's opinions and why it's important to not live by them. Not that you can't respect other people and what they have to say, but just not determining all of your life based off of that. And I said it's because, for example, someone's opinion is framed by their personal experience and what they may have endured. And so everything they view is through that lens. And no two experiences are the same. Just like when you get married, it is a wedding, but I don't know one wedding or two weddings that were 100% the same, down to the wire, right? Like there are unique things, even though it falls under that umbrella. And so when we look at the world and when we look at parenting or when we look at other people, being able to separate it and not make it so egocentric with, oh, it's all about me. This is how, like, they're judging. No, they're projecting their experience through their lens of life. And when you can start to separate that, that's okay for them. And maybe they had sushi one time and it gave them food poisoning, but you're going to try it for the first time and you're feeling kind of hopeful it's not going to give you food poisoning. Then it kind of alleviates that pressure.
Yeah, it's so interesting too having this kind of conversation on social media when someone can scroll past your video and the next thing they see is something really terrible that happened in the news or something super divisive or really mean. With everything going on in the world, how do you still see the best in people?
I think with everything going on in the world, how can you not try to see the best in people? Honestly, it's so easy to look for the negative and it's there. In social media, everything is exposed and we're with the generations coming after us even more so, they're so open and they share so openly with things going on. And I think that when you my dad used to say, when you dig for dirt, you'll find it, but you have to mine for gold. And so it's easy to dig up dirt, but looking for the gold and trying to find the positive and saying, I can lovingly disagree with you and I can still have empathy for others and I can still create that change, even if it's just in the four walls of my home, trying to create better tiny humans, which I already think they're better people than I am, but better people for the future. Like that's what I try to do. And I think that we get what we look for. If I'm looking to be divisive, it takes me 1 second to find it. It's more effort to try and look for something positive. And I think that if you think of the world right now too, people need it. There's such a need for it, not just from a life standpoint, but from a mental health standpoint, with all of us quarantining and doing other things. You want to be putting things out there that bring people joy, at least for me, because I think that if I can do that for someone, it's why I make the content. I think it's beautiful that I've been able to segue this into a career with all the changes of 2020 and make this something that I get to do every day. But at the end of the day, um, what I do, I just always want it to be encouraging.
Did you ever struggle with the idea of putting yourself out there, your stories and your advice? Was there ever a worry, should I do this? What will people think? What was that like for you?
Mm, I think it's more, I don't want people, I always say, don't hear what I'm not saying. So my concern is I want people to hear what I'm hoping to get across, which is, you know, so many different things when it comes to different content. I think the times where I question what are people going to think of me, that's the video I need to make. Whenever I think to myself, oh, how is this going to make me look? I know it's the video I need to make because it's not about me, what I'm going through, what I'm dealing with, the mistake I made, the negative comments that could come for me is going to make one person feel less alone. And if I can do that, again, taking out my ego from it and making it all about me and saying, I have this to share, and knowing that the people who need it and the community that wants it will find it, then that's okay. And I think it's incredible because I feel like, yes, I do receive negativity on occasion, but the community that I have, specifically on TikTok, they are so encouraging. They show up for me. Like they are just so authentically encouraging to me, and I am in awe of it constantly because I see that it's so easy to leave a negative comment, and I always know when one of my videos has kind of gone outside of my community because I do get the negative comments, and when I look at those, it's people that don't follow me. And in my mind, I go, "Okay, I get it. There's no context."
When those negative comments come, how do you deal with this criticism and not let it overwhelm all of the positivity that you do get?
That's something I think, one, I don't read comments at night. I definitely don't read comments at night. I don't know if it's just me, but my dad used to tell me never make decisions that are important at night, and it's the best advice I've ever been given because I am more, oh my gosh, it gets to me. When I look at the negativity, what I'll usually do, and there have been a couple comments that I've read that just it's like a gut punch. It takes the wind out of you and you're like, but how could, like, it just, and I'll tell my husband it, or I'll call one of my girlfriends, or I'll say, I need to tell you this comment someone left, not because I need empathy or because I need them to be like, that's not you, but they will literally say to me, okay, but Amanda, does that person know you? Is that true? Is that actually true for you? And I'll say no. And they're like, if it's not your truth, then you know it's okay. And I can walk away knowing that it's they don't know me in that 1 minute clip to eclipse who I am as a person. But I will tell you, there have been times, especially during this pandemic, where I went from making, and that's, of course, I have 3 kids at home. I went from making probably about 6 to 8 videos a day on TikTok to having to stop myself from wanting to oversaturate with content like I was and go to 1 to maybe 3 videos a day because it was at the point where I needed to manage the content I was putting out and what I was letting come in for myself. And as much as I want to put a ton of content out every day and everyone tells me that's what you got to do and that's what you should do, considering how that comes in for me and what that looks like on me, I had to do a better job of managing that during this time.
I love that piece of advice about not making decisions at night. Because for me, too, that's when like my anxiety creeps up and I start thinking about, I posted this earlier. What do people think of me? Even if no one says anything, you still get that in your head.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even conversations you have, text messages, I usually will cut myself off at a certain hour because I just know I will mull it over. And then I wake up in the morning and I'm like, "Oh, I can read between the lines on this." So much more clarity.
What would your advice be for someone who this year is struggling to see the good?
Oh man. I would say that if a a lot of people have actually said this, that if you've made it, if you're here and you've kept making it through every day of quarantine and every day of 2020 and you've continued to overcome because every day that you're here and you're navigating, you're overcoming, then you're literally on your way. There is nothing that you cannot conquer if you're already conquering this year because it's so hard. And if you feel like you're not conquering it, there's no shame in that because everybody feels like they're not conquering it. We all feel like we're somehow out. I told my husband, I said, I feel like I'm asking for a lifesaver in the middle of the ocean and people are chucking mints at me today. Lifesaver. It's the wrong kind of
Yeah.
lifesaver. But I would just say that if they're struggling, that's okay. And it's okay to have a good moment and a bad moment in the next. It's not a half glass empty, half glass half full. It's refillable. And the minute we start to understand that we can refill it, even when it gets low, and it's okay if it gets low because it's refillable, I think it kind of gives us that freedom.
If you want more of Amanda's amazing advice and wisdom, you can follow her at After Hours with Amanda and listen to her podcast by the same name. If you love this episode, make sure to leave a review and subscribe because I'm going to have Amanda back in the next few weeks to talk about self-love and why making mistakes is actually a really good thing. Until next time, remember you're loved, you matter, and you've got this.